Things had changed. There'd been a shift after the birth of my second daughter. And I kind of knew that that my wife had been having affairs, and consequently, after the fact, I found out a lot more, and I was correct about all of that stuff. And I was happy to know I was going to make the major decisions, but I was very unhappy that I was still going to be sharing the time 50-50, because it was the time the girls were spending in the other home where they were being indoctrinated that was really the issue. I was convinced that my children could be harmed at any moment, and that I needed to be like a firefighter. I needed to have my bunker gear right beside my chair, my cot, and to be able to jump into it, slide down the pole, and off you go. Right? Like, one of the big mistakes I made all the way along was I would send too many long emails to my lawyers too many times a day or per week. And you're getting dinged $80, $100, because that's what they charge. They charge for their time. And I'm encouraging people to slow down and breathe when they feel that most intense desire to pick up that phone, call a lawyer, or to pick up the phone and scream at their ex, or to pick up that phone or whatever, or text. Don't do it. Again, it's the natural byproduct of what law practitioners are. Their mentality is adversarial. They're required to tell clients when they come in the office, the first meeting they have, to consider alternative dispute resolution systems like mediation arbitration. But they don't really do that. It's all about the law. And that's an adversarial system. It's a system. It's a scorecard system. Wins, losses, wins, losses, wins, losses. That's how they see it. And that has to change.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Just Separated podcast. I'm Karen Oman, a thanatologist, grief counselor, divorce strategist, and co-author of the Just Separated workbook. I help people navigate the emotional, legal, and practical challenges of divorce, including high conflict and narcissist relationships. Each week, I am joined by expert guests to share guidance, tools, and strategies so you can move forward with clarity, confidence, and resilience. Follow Just Separated and join us as we explore the many layers of divorce. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hi, welcome to the Just Separated podcast. I'm your host, Karen Oman, co-founder of the Divorce Workshop. Today, we're going to talk about when you can't reach them, grief in the battle for your children. And our expert guest is Jamie West. Jamie has lived in the family law system in Canada. He was the respondent in 10 years of litigation that focused heavily on custody and access of his two young daughters. Jamie was the system would call the winner in litigation, despite the enormous mental and emotional cost to both daughters, whose entire childhoods were destroyed by a war he never asked to be part of. He gave up a successful career as a journalist, talk show host, and communications consult to become an accredited family mediator following the war. And now he is a coach helping others understand exactly what family law systems in Canada is really like. Welcome, Jamie, to the Just Separated podcast.
Thanks, Karen. It's great to be here.
So, Jamie, before we dive into the system and the struggle, can you take us back to who you were before the litigation began? What was your life like before you became the respondent?
It's a great question for openers. I'll tell you, it's only recently that I've been able to even look back and remember who I was before then, because I feel like a different person after having gone through what I did. And many people who maybe are listening have been through something similar will understand that. I was just a small business person, self-employed, working in communications. I had a small ad agency. I was doing media consulting, communications consulting, crisis management, communication stuff for various clients. I worked from my home, had two little girls at home, had a newer, nice home in the suburbs of Ontario, and thought everything was going along great. And my wife was working seemingly successfully at a job in the media as well. And things seemed to be going along quite well. In fact, I wasn't I wasn't very active, we'll say, on things like social media. She was, and she was always posting pictures of, pictures of family and like people do. Um, and she seemed quite happy. So that's who I was before everything came crashing down in November of 2014.
That's when this whole struggle began.
It did, yeah. Like a lot of marriages that break up, um, one party does the breaking and the other does the reacting. And I will admit I was caught off guard, even though I said a minute ago I was happy in the marriage. The last couple of years of the marriage, I really wasn't. I was very suspicious. Things had changed. There'd been a shift after the birth of my second daughter, and I kind of knew that my wife had been having affairs, and consequently, after the fact, I found out a lot more, and I was correct about all of that stuff, and so yeah, it dropped on me like a bomb. Even though I had some inkling, it still hits you hard, and particularly the way she did it. We were supposed to go to a birthday party of a friend who was turning 40, and um, she didn't want to go and wasn't feeling well. Okay, well, that's fine. I'll go and give best wishes, and and I'll come home early. It's no big deal. And while I was at the party, she texted me to tell me that the marriage was over and not to come home. Yeah, just like that. So after a 16-year relationship, she didn't think that it was important to have a face-to-face discussion or to tell me face-to-face.
That one
Did
of
it
the
over text.
Sorry, was that one of the first times, like one of the first things you went, like, this is strange? Like, oh.
Oh, I thought it was a joke at first. I mean, my stomach sank, but I went out and I excused myself, went out in the hallway, and I called, and she said something along the lines of, "This isn't exactly right," but something along the lines of, you read the message. That's what it is. Click, and yeah, and that started the ball rolling. And then what I found out was she had planned an exit with another guy who she worked with in her real estate office, a guy who I knew only by reputation, and it was a terrible reputation. Um, I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, and Hamilton is Canada's largest small town. And I was also a public media figure here for a long time. So, I grew up here. So I knew lots of people. Lots of people knew me. And so I knew this guy by reputation, and it was a terrible one. And I immediately became very concerned about my daughter's safety, and actually about my soon-to-be ex-wife's safety too. And I expressed that to her. So yeah, it had all been planned. He bombed his fiance at the time with the same message on the same day. So he was already engaged to be married to somebody else, and he led her along and then bombed her with the same type of message. It was like a D-Day thing, the big surprise. And people who are very calculated in terms of deceit and lying are good at that. I was very naive.
You and
I'm
I,
not,
you and I
yeah.
talked about that. We talked about how naive, like, we are, especially in your situation of going through a 10-year battle. I don't think if you look back then from D-Day, what you call, that you would have
Hmm.
thought then that you were going to be in a 10-year battle.
No, no, not at all. I thought, actually, it's funny because like 24 hours later, 48 hours later, after the bomb dropped, I was like, well, this is great. I'm relieved to be. I was actually happy to know that I was going to break up with her because I'd had enough of the relationship with her anyway. But it was my children I was very worried about. And on a personal level, I've always been an active father. I was the most upset and sad about the fact that I knew I wouldn't be seeing them every day. That separation, that's how separations are. And the thing I loved the most about the domestic existence at that time was seeing my children every day. My wife at the time worked long hours, so she wasn't around a lot. And that was great because it gave me lots of time to connect with my daughters. And I did. I was very closely bonded to them, with them. And, so that was the big risk to me. Oh my goodness. And she knew that. She knew that. And that's part of the reason why she did what she did.
I think it's well researched too that if men leave the home, like you were kind of kicked out of the home, a lot of them are worried that they won't have communications with their kids. And it does go down quite a bit because you don't see them every day.
Well, here's the funny thing. I stayed in the home. She left because she had prepared a new love nest with the new guy, not far from our home. So I stayed, and then she wanted to rush to get the home sold because there was some equity in it, and she wanted the money out. And I said, no, I get that we got to sell the house, but we're not doing it before the end of the school year. Like, the kids have to have this neighborhood, these friends, this school, until the end of the school year, and we'll sell in the spring when everybody else does. So and yes, you're right. Communication does dwindle a bit when you're not seeing your kid every day. But if you got the trust of the other parent, which I now did not have, I didn't trust her. Then it makes it even more difficult. I had been divorced once before, and had a what we might call a marvelous divorce. Like got along great with my first ex-wife. We co-parented our son beautifully, and we trusted one another, and we cared about one another. So there weren't any major issues. I mean, really, there weren't. A little bit of tension at the beginning, but that's all. Like most people.
I have to ask, when did you start noticing or seeing something we like something's going on here with your kids and
Yeah.
your ex? Because and when did, also to follow up, when did you have to start going to court about that? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's
Well, here's how it went. So she goes off with this new guy who it turned out was associated with guys that had been arrested on gun and drug crimes. He acted as a surety for one of them, which means he put up bail to get one of them out of jail. These were the people he was running around with, and he admitted that in court under oath down the road. And so I had previously been an investigative reporter, so I knew how to get information, and I had sources in the police department and in the media that I could tap to get information, and I did. It started almost right away. As soon as she realized that I knew who he was, she immediately began to become fearful herself. Oh my goodness, I thought he was a dope, but he knows all about this guy, and he knows what I've pulled. She went out on social media and plastered. I just told you earlier about social media. She went out and plastered herself all over social media with the new guy, love of my life. This is the new love of my life, so on and so forth. People in the community didn't respond positively to her. In fact, a lot of people went, "What are you doing? Where's Jamie? What is this? What's going on?" So she got this negative blowback, and she couldn't stand it. She couldn't stand being viewed negatively in the eyes of people. She was always trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. So she decided to create her own narrative. And then that narrative was that all of a sudden I had morphed into a cross section of O.J. Simpson, Bill Cosby, and P. Diddy. Yeah. And the two of them, not just her, the two of them went at it, while at the same time trying to portray themselves as the wonderful Waltons, the happy family.
They basically attacked you in public, like on social media and stuff?
They not so much so on social media, but they did it. They did it quietly and privately with anybody that would listen to them. Most people didn't. Well, no, most people didn't buy it at all. And there were a certain number of people who are. And we all have people like this in our lives who will listen to you and nod their heads, but secretly aren't believing you. They just don't know what to say, or they're uncomfortable, or So yeah, so she began to so it began to manifest as her constantly contacting the children when they were in my care. That's where it began. So the children would be in my care, and she would phone them 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. Back in the days when we had a landline in the house. Okay, this is 2014, 2015. My kids were very young. They were 4 and 8. So the cell phones they didn't have their own cell phones. And so there was just constant encroaching on my time with them. And when she would talk to them, she would say, "Oh, we really miss you. We really miss you. Ask Daddy if you can come home tomorrow, then so we can all go to Chuck E. Cheese. What's that toy you're playing with? Or, that that's dangerous. You shouldn't be playing with that toy. Daddy shouldn't have you doing that. No, no." So there was an instant undermining. Daddy's dangerous. Let me pull you back. At one point, she texted them, "Are you okay? Do you want to come home?" Meaning this is your real home. Mm-hmm. So it was on this subterfuge, this undercurrent that she and him were all good and Dad was all bad. Now, a month before she split, she gave me a birthday card. My birthday is in September. She left in November. A month before, she filled 4 sides of a birthday card with how wonderful I was as a husband and father. I mean, in her own handwriting, and how I just get better and better every year. So at what point did I morph into OJ and Bill Cosby? And she actually tried to play that at court. So that's where the alienation began. The alienation began with that. And I always tell my clients, watch out. If that's going on, that's the beginning. And you got to try to nip it early. So hope that answers your question.
So it took 10 years of court battles for custody. Now I know that generally these are the most common like in high conflict, or let's just spell that out, that not every high conflict is both people being high conflict. You were not high conflict, she was high conflict. However,
I was an overreactor at times, I'll admit that.
That makes sense. But so my point is in 10 years you were in court how many times, Jamie?
I can't tell you. You know what, too many times to count, but a couple dozen times easily. And yeah, the from the time that this started to the time we got to a custody trial, which, let's remember, she was the applicant in the matter. I was just trying to negotiate a deal. And she at the beginning said, "I just want 50-50 and 50-50 time split." And I was like, well, okay, that's solved. Like, we were going to make decisions together and have a 50-50 time split. But once the numbnut got involved, then he began to control her life completely. And he didn't like that I knew who he was. So he had a personal vendetta against me. And he again was trying to weaponize my children for his own personal needs. And that's the kind of guy he is. He's a lowlife.
So can you tell everybody, listeners, then, is from what I'm understanding and what I know even personally, is that you need to assume that the system is not going to protect your children. You.
Yeah, don't go in guns blazing at the beginning and think, I'm going to lawyer up and the lawyer's going to take care of this and this will all be done and dusted in 2 weeks. It won't be. It'll be 8 months. Right now, as the schedule sits in court, it'll be 8 months before you get an initial hearing on the matter. if you're the litigants. So just to roll back to your first question there, it the custody trial took place in year 5, right? The journey was 10 years. The custody trial took place in year 5. It went for 16 days, and I won. I say with, this is what winning looks like. So the judge gave me all the legal decision making for both girls, but split the time between the two households 50-50. And I was happy to know I was going to make the major decisions, but I was very unhappy that I was still going to be sharing the time 50-50, because it was the time the girls were spending in the other home where they were being indoctrinated that was really the issue. So the court completely missed it. Even though the judge in her decision, God bless her, she meant well. It's not enough to mean well. She meant well. She hoped that things would settle down after. Well, things don't settle down with people who have tremendous narcissistic tendencies and are driven and are, somewhat thought disordered and are driven to alienate the kids from the other parent.
You give us some examples of what they did after you won?
Well, first of all, she decided that no, that wasn't good enough. So first of all, she sat the children down and told them everything. If you can imagine that. Imagine being a child and being sat down by one parent and told a whole bunch of things, including details of what went on in the testimony and at the court, and telling my daughters that I was an abuser, that I had sexually assaulted her, or that I was part of a sexual assault, and on and on. Yeah, they were, these two idiots thought that it was okay to bring children into it. He did it too with his own children. He had 2 kids of his own, and he was completely in battle with his ex too. Just a chaotic mess. So they unveiled everything, and then she immediately appealed. So the first part cost me about $225,000 to get to the 5-year mark, like the trial and some motions prior. Now I had no choice. Okay, people will be blown away when they hear this. Remember, I won the trial, right? I won custody. Now she goes to the Ontario Court of Appeal as an applicant and wants that reversed for the same reasons that she cited in the trial. Well, first of all, the Ontario Court of Appeal is not a place where you go to get a retrial. That's not what it's about. The only thing the Ontario Court of Appeal will deal with are errors in law, errors in law, and palpable mistakes that a judge makes. That's all they will deal with. They're not going to retry the case. So that process took about a year, almost a year and a half, and it cost me the better part of another $70,000. Is that right? $70,000. Her bill of costs was around $100,000. So if I was $225,000 for the trial, she had to be the same amount or more. So there's $500,000 there of family money gone. Another $170,000 gone on the appeal. This is money my children will never see. And I win again at the appeal. Okay, I won. The court awards me in costs $25,000 of my $70,000. So I had to defend myself against in something that I had already won at the lower court. Nice system, eh? That somebody can do that. So there was abuse by litigation taking place by this woman too. Anyway, that goes along. She decides she's going to double and triple down on alienating the children. And it gets worse. The children start to act up. The children start to spy on me. Spy on dad. Get any kind of dirt you can on him. Who's he seeing? What's he doing? Take pictures. Make sure you record all the conversations with him. They were never able to uncover anything that was particularly damning to me because there was nothing there. But she decided to do what's called a motion to change. So when she failed at the appeal, let's do a motion to change. I will get my daughters to swear an affidavit that dad's bad and they want to live with mom. And they want mom to make all the decisions in their lives. So what she did, my ex-wife, was she began to manipulate professionals too. Let me find a therapist who will agree with me. And I'll coach the children to deliver certain messages to certain professionals, whether they be child protection workers, cops, therapists, and that all gets recorded. And then we'll use that to get them.
I want to talk a bit, briefly about we had talked a bit about before about the therapist and family court. You know, the reunification therapies and all that. And you had told me that. Well, I had been told too by my lawyer they don't work.
Well, yeah.
So what is?
Again, I was naive.
Yeah,
I was naive. In court, I bucked for it at the trial. Like I said, we want this particular professional to engage in reunification therapy. And my hope was that if the court ordered it and my ex-wife was ordered to be involved, then it would all work out. But it'll never work if one party isn't acting in good faith. And she was never acting in good faith, ever. Instead, what she did was the same thing. She coached up the children. She told them more horror stories about their father. She told them what to say. She told them not to trust the therapist. So she undermined the process and the therapist themselves. So, and because it was court ordered, the therapist was able to, for lack of a better way of putting it, get away with charging fees nonstop until the court said, you don't have to do this anymore. And that's another thing that people don't realize. When you get into a court process, you're handing over a lot of power. You're handing over a lot of power to people. And they control your wallet too, a lot of the steps along the way.
I think that's why it's so important that you share your story, because I think, it's rarer, like it's in the top 5% or 3%, but I think the reality that this can actually happen, because I don't think people that go through divorce or they think that this can actually happen to them. And I think
they don't think so.
No, it's the same thing for myself and for others I've talked to and who I work with. They're pretty naive about it all.
Which is natural. We grow up believing that most of us grow up believing in the law. And we're taught to believe in the law. We're taught to believe in the system of justice in our country that we grew up with. And that if we need it, it'll be there for us. Well, it's not. A lot of the time, it isn't. It isn't.
Yeah, I think we talked about that too. About the family law system is set up very adversarial.
Oh, it is, because that's how lawyers are trained. Lawyers are trained in the law and to be adversarial. One of the things, Karen, that was so shocking to me, I got to know a lot of lawyers. I got to know some really shitty ones and some really great ones. And the great ones told me, they don't do any work with us in law school on interpersonal communications or sociology to any degree. It's all about the law. And that's an adversarial system. It's a system. It's a scorecard system. Wins, lose, losses, wins, losses, wins, losses. That's how they see it. And that has to change. I'll just speak for family law. That has to change. Judges need to be trained too. Sorry.
It seems to be that the family law is built on conflict, not healing.
Well, again, it's the natural byproduct of what law practitioners are. Their mentality is adversarial. They're required to tell clients when they come in the office, the first meeting they have, to consider alternative dispute resolution systems like mediation arbitration. But they don't really do that. They pay lip service to it a little bit, And then they skip right into, well, here's what we can do for you.
And
Here,
if you're coming from a place of being a little scared, uncertain,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
angry, emotional, I want to get back at them because you don't want to take any responsibility of why your marriage might have ended because it's all their fault, not your fault, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're going to feed into that, and that's where that starting that escalation of fighting, right?
Well, exactly. And a lot of family law practitioners will tell you, well, I don't want to deal with high conflict. It's too stressful for me, the lawyer. But the honest truth is that they make a lot of money off high conflict cases. Those are the money makers. And they know that too. It may stress them out, but they make a lot of money off of it. And they'll take the money most of the time over the stress, unless they've been at it for a very long time and they don't need the stress to make the money anymore. But most firms they want the money first. Don't kid yourself.
It is a business.
It's a business. That's
But
right.
on the business of the back of families that are just trying to reorganize, really.
Right. They're not charities. Yeah. And but be aware of that. I say to people, just be aware of that. And they're not going to be therapists. Like, one of the big mistakes I made all the way along was I would send too many long emails to my lawyers too many times a day or per week. And you're getting dinged $80, $100 because that's what they charge. They charge for their time. And if they have to spend, time reading your email and responding to you, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. So in many ways, I was my own worst enemy when it came to the costs at the beginning. And a lot of people they don't realize. So one of the things I help people with is what you help people with is the grief is get hold of and acknowledge and realize the grief and the pain that you're in emotionally. And let's get you, $25 an hour help over here for that, not $500 an hour help over here in the lawyer's office, because they're not trained in that. They can't help you with that anyway.
I do have a question though.
Sure.
When I was thinking about talking with you is this whole experience that you talked about, this 10-year battle.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me, was it a lonely experience or like, did you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So I was fortunate. I really did have a tremendous support system around me, and people will find if they're just starting and going down this road that you're going to find out who your friends really are through a thing like this. I was surprised at people who didn't show up or couldn't show up emotionally for me, and I was stunned at the people that did. I had a client, a guy that I really liked in business as a client. He turned out to be, to this day, one of my best friends. We became close friends through this. I didn't know he cared that much. Turns out he did. And I always say to people, be careful about leaning on your friends and family because they're biased. And most of the time they have your best interests at heart, but a lot of the time they just want to solve their own uncomfortableness about the whole thing. So they won't give you the best advice. You're better to have a friend who's not part of the family to talk to have coffee with or go out with and sit and talk. Somebody that's willing to listen to you for ad nauseum for hours, that's a friend. Somebody who's just wants to talk at you and tell you what to do, that is not a friend. That is not, and that, no, don't do that. Yes, it was very lonely. I felt like I was fighting this battle by myself most of the time.
And put in that too, as in the grief we would call, there's a lot of chronic sorrow.
Dark.
It's a chronic, so it's just because you're in this battle with custody and you're not seeing your kids as much, or you're not seeing them at all, or they're turned against you. There's a lot of what we call chronic sorrow. It's just
it's
agony because, for you yourself, you had a good attachment with them. And then all of a sudden that over the years, it just.
I felt I was taken to levels of darkness in my own mind that to that point in my life, I'd never experienced. I wasn't suicidal, but I think I was getting pretty close to it. I was certainly very sad. I was very angry, and I was very fearful. And I didn't know how to overcome it. And I kept asking, it's funny, you're an expert in grief. I couldn't understand why I couldn't cry. I couldn't cry. I wanted to. I thought it would help me. I just couldn't. I don't know what it was. And I think I would avoid anything that might trigger tears for me. I would avoid like the plague. Like I didn't want to hear songs that I sang to my children as lullabies and stuff like that, because I could feel how intense the pain was rising up, and I'd rather just keep it down. I wasn't very well at all that way. I was fortunate that I did find some very good therapeutic help. I even did EMDR therapy because I had been threatened. My life had been threatened, and I was threatened with bodily harm via burner phones among, her new partner's crew. I was sleeping at one point. I was sleeping with a knife under my pillow. I was sleeping fully dressed with my boots on so that I could get up fast and react fast and run fast and be ready. I was convinced that my children could be harmed at any moment and that I needed to be like a firefighter. I needed to have my bunker gear right beside my chair, my cot, and to be able to jump into it, slide down the pole, and off you go, right? I was in fight or flight for a decade, complete fight or flight. And people ask me, how did you not die of a heart attack or stroke or something? I'm 58 now, so I was 48 when it started. And I said, all I can tell you is I don't know, but I always had a consciousness in terms of the decision. I was bound and bent that this was not going to kill me. I would not let it kill me. No way. I just was not going to allow it to happen. They are not going to take my kids away from me, and they're not going to get me.
How are you today? You said 10 years, so that's 2014 to 2024. Is it calmed down now?
A lot, yeah. It has. So I'm happy to report that, I changed careers because of what went down. I became an accredited family mediator and a divorce coach, you might call me. That's a term. Somebody that helps people get their way, find their way through the system, find their way through different steps. I try to get to people early because that's when they're the most wound up. So I tell them my tale because mine's very extreme. It's 1% of 1%. Theirs probably isn't anywhere near that, which is good. So I give them hope. I say, look, mine's the worst, the worst, the worst. Yours won't be that bad, and here's why. And if you do this and you do that, we can calm you down. I think that work has helped me therapeutically as well. It's been very cathartic. Again, I've learned how to sniff out really good therapists and really shitty ones. My youngest daughter fled her other home completely into my care, even though there was a court order for 50-50 access. She jumped from her mother's moving vehicle in October of 23 and took refuge in my garage and called me. I happened to be in Toronto. And she said, Dad, a physical altercation had taken place. The child protection workers verified that there was harm to her, and they recommended that she not leave my care. And I said, well, she's not leaving my care. Because at that point, Karen, I was already fed up with the family court system. My ex-wife had acted in contempt so many times over the last 10 years. She got found in contempt once out of all the shit she threw at the fan. And that was thanks to a really strong judge who had a lot of common sense. And her name was Cheryl Lafreniere. Honorable Madam Cheryl Lafreniere. Very tough. very common sense. One of my heroes. Um, and so my daughter's in therapy. She's under doctor's supervision. She's got a lot of recovering to do from abuse that she suffered in the other home. The entire 10 years, the two idiots were covering up all kinds of emotional abuse, family violence, domestic abuse between them. And my daughter brought forward videos and audio of what was going on in the other house. Now, my older daughter, God bless her, I think she's doing really well. I'm very proud of her. She still resides at her mother's home, but she's going to university. She's doing well. She works long hours part-time. She's doing fairly well, but she's got a lot. She's got a lot she's going to have to process. She's in a bit of denial about
That's the
some
thing
things.
about what everyone has to remember in this conversation. And we started off talking about that at the beginning, was the real harm is the children.
The children lose. Everybody loses in these deals. And I don't want anybody listening to think that I think I'm perfect. Look, I could be a miserable person to live with. I could be difficult, dependent on what was going on in my life, in my work. Certainly the last couple of years of the marriage were not good. So that everybody's miserable when that's not working. So you become sarcastic. You say things you shouldn't say from time to time. No, I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't anywhere close to what I was portrayed to be. But I did have a hand in the marriage not working. There's no question about that. I would be lying if I said otherwise. And I haven't really met any couples yet who one person was absolutely perfect and the other person was rotten. So, we all make mistakes in our marriages. It's how you overcome the mistakes. It's how you take responsibility, and it's the accountability piece. That was always missing from my ex-wife. She never took accountability. Her way of dealing with things was to brush them under the carpet. We had very lumpy carpets in our house, and yeah.
Did we miss anything that's really important to talk about before we wrap up?
I think the message that I want to get across to people is your body and your brain are going to tell you to do certain things when you're really upset and stressed out. And I'm encouraging people to slow down and breathe when they feel that most intense desire to pick up that phone, call a lawyer, or to pick up the phone and scream at their ex, or to pick up that phone or whatever, text. Don't do it. Just don't do it. And there's a saying, when in doubt, don't. Don't. You don't have to take action right away. Examine your own feelings first, and then talk to somebody like Karen. Talk to somebody like you who can help them with the grief. That's what people feel primarily right off the top. They've lost something, and they fear they're going to lose more. They've lost hopes and dreams. Nobody gets married because they think they're going to get divorced. We all get married thinking this is forever and this is going to be great. So there's a big loss, right? So it's slow down at the beginning and talk to somebody like Karen. Call me, reach out to me. I'll talk to you for a half an hour, not on the meter, and sometimes that's all it takes. You can turn people's lives around if you give them a little bit of information.
I think we both wished we had that for our divorces.
Oh yeah, I wish there had been somebody like you or me. Well, maybe somebody like you or me to help at the start, because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah. You almost probably answered the last question I asked all our guests that come on. But for someone who is just separated, whether they left or were left, what advice would you give them to help them navigate those overwhelming early days? And I think you answered that, but if you have anything else you want to share.
Yeah, I would don't hire the first lawyer you interview. Don't hire the first therapist you interview. Don't hire the first financial expert you interview. Don't take advice from your hairdresser and your mechanic about your family situation. be methodical, be careful, set up a criteria for hiring a lawyer. Most people don't. They want to give their power away. They're frightened at the beginning. Okay, you're a lawyer. You must know everything here. Just run with my life. Don't do that. Not all lawyers are good. Some are good. Some are crap, like in any profession. Talk to somebody like me, or Karen, or other experts, other divorce coaches. There's plenty of us out there. I would argue not too many with my depth of experience in the court system. And let us help you establish a criteria so that, because to do it fast, you do it wrong. To do it a little more slowly, a little more methodically, you're bound to get it right. And that's the whole thing. Slow down and breathe and talk to somebody like me or Karen. Slow down and breathe, breathe, breathe. It's going to be okay. The court system doesn't move quickly. So you don't feel this, I got to do this right now. I got to get this done by the end of the day. No, don't do that.
Advice. So where can people, I know you have a book coming out, if you want to talk about the book that's coming out this fall, and where
Sure.
they can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So the book coming out this fall is called Fight for Their Lives. And it's really a memoir about my entire story, how it started. I mean, you've heard some of it here on your podcast, Karen, and it takes the reader through my background. I'm a child of divorce as well. It talks about how the family law system has evolved since no-fault divorce came into play in 1968, and then the arrival of the Unified Family Court. And then I just tell my story. We go through it. I talk about lawyers. I talk about therapists. Some of the titles of the chapters are "Kill All the Lawyers." I mean, that's a play on the old Shakespeare line from Macbeth. Beware the do-gooders. There's a lot of people who want to do good. Therapists, beware. We talk about money. We talk about there's one called Wheel of Judges in there, because every time you go to court, you're going to see a different judge, probably. On and on. So I think it's a good read. It's pretty edgy. People have told me it's pretty edgy. Maybe a little too edgy for some, but that's just my style. So that'll be coming out in September. We've got a podcast starting as well around the same time. That's called The Real Parental Alienation Podcast, and I hope you'll be a guest on that at some point, Karen, because I want to get all of that across, everything that you have to offer, which is a lot. And people can get a hold of me easily, jwest@westpromediation.com, and the website's westpromediation.com. Google me, you'll find me. I'm out there, and I'm not hiding. And pick up the phone and give me a call. Send me a line. Happy to help.
Awesome to have you on. I think that your story is something that everybody should really pay attention to, because even though you don't think it can happen to you, you and I know people that it's happened to, maybe not to your extreme, but it's happened.
I could never have imagined having gone through this ever, but I will say this too, as a closing note of hope. It actually turned out to be one of the greatest gifts I've ever received from the universe, believe it or not. And if people want to talk to me about that, they can reach out.
Till another time. That's a good segue. But thank you, Jamie, for coming on and sharing this incredible story that we
Karen,
need to
thank
hear.
you. Thank you so much for having me on, and I look forward to talking to you again down the road. All the best.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining today's conversation with our divorce expert. Check out the show notes for more about our guests, and don't forget to follow us on Spotify and our YouTube channel at divorceworkshop.ca. We'd love to hear from you. Share your questions, comments, or guest suggestions. And for a complete guide to navigating separation divorce, check out the Just Separated workbook on Amazon. It covers emotions, co-parenting, finances, legal insights, and recovery. A must-have for anyone going through separation or divorce.